Hi friends, Pastor Doug Batchelor. We want to welcome you to the third part in our study on the shocking truths about the Great Tribulation. Now, if you've seen it, if you haven't, I hope you'll find these videos and watch them. Part number 1 of the Great Tribulation is dealing with the prophecies that foretold the fall of Jerusalem and the Great Tribulation connected with the destruction of the temple when the Romans conquered Israel and scattered the Jewish nation around the empire. Then you've got the second phase, this is in the second video, of the Great Tribulation, where Jesus foretold that there would be a Great Tribulation the church would experience it's during the Dark Ages, about 538 AD to 1798. And this is a time of intense papal persecution, the Inquisition, the Bible Christians were driven into the hills. That's in the past. Now we're going to study the Great Tribulation that's in the future. Let's read it together from Matthew chapter 24, and I'll be starting with verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down and take anything out of his house. And let those that are in the field not go back and get their clothes. And woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight be not in the winter or on the Sabbath. For then will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days are shortened, no flesh will be saved. So Jesus is foretelling a great tribulation unlike any other tribulation. And there was a great tribulation unlike any other during the Dark Ages in what befell the Jewish nation. But there is a future great tribulation, and that's the focus of our study today. First of all, don't be frightened by tribulation. It is part of life for every believer. 2 Timothy 3 verse 12, yes, all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. There's trouble in life, not only for believers. The rain and the sunshine comes upon the good and the evil. So there are problems and there's various tribulation everybody experiences. Romans 5:3, and not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance. That word perseverance is like the word endurance. It's through these trials we learn patience and how to hang on. James 1, verse 2 through 4, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. And then in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 4, but in all things we commend ourselves as ministers of God, in much patience in tribulations. And so tribulation is just part of life. It's true even in the Christian life. It is definitely harder on the wicked and the sinner and better for the believer. But there's going to be a great tribulation. The devil, the beast powers will focus on God's people in the last days. All right, first of all, when is the great tribulation? Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, and this is a verse Jesus is referring to in his discourse in Matthew 24. At that time Michael will stand up, the great prince that stands for the children of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as there never has been since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people will be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. And that's the book of life, of course. And notice, many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, and some to everlasting shame and contempt. So it's talking now about a great time of trouble immediately before the resurrection. This has to be the Great Tribulation at the end of time. So there is a separate final Great Tribulation, and the ultimate end to that Great Tribulation is the climax of history, the coming of Jesus. Now, before this Great Tribulation, there's something that is called a small tribulation. You may have heard about that. There's the minor and the major. Speaking of the last Great Tribulation, it comes in two parts. If you look in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, speaking about the final persecution of the beast power and the mark of the beast, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, that no one might buy or sell except the one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So it's talking about this time where there's going to be pressure put on the people of God to renounce their faith, and there'll be economic pressure. There'll be sanctions. Well, we already have international economic sanctions that are issued by the United Nations and other cooperative nations against one another, but they'll be able to control buying and selling. I don't think that shocks anybody today because we're moving more and more to a cashless society, but that's the subject of a different video. So there is a small part of the tribulation, and some wonder, how long will this be? This is a time when people are making their final decisions. God's people are going to be preaching the truth. The beast power is going to begin trying to strengthen its coalition to persecute. And the small time of trouble, we're not sure. Some suspect it may be similar to other times of trouble that have come upon God's people that have been about 3.5 years. Now that time period comes up many times in the Bible. Look in James chapter 5:17. Elijah was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. 3.5 years during the time when Elijah was being persecuted by Jezebel, and the prophets had to hide in caves. You look in Revelation 12, verse 6. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's not only for the 3.5 prophetic years of the Dark Ages, but some wonder, will that be reproduced again at the end of time? Maybe, not sure. It's interesting to note that in the book of Esther, the book of Esther is divided in the beginning into 2 3.5-year periods. Notice, Esther chapter 1, verse 2 through 4. In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which is in Shushan, the citadel, that in the 3rd year of his reign, he makes a feast for all his officials and servants, the powers of Persia, for many days, 180 days in all. Well, the Jewish year had 360 days. 180 is half of that. That again is exactly 3.5 years. And then 3.5 years, well, after the first 3.5 years, Vashti is deposed. 3.5 years later, exactly, Esther is chosen, and then Haman tries to destroy the Jewish nation. There's a law to annihilate all of God's people. It's kind of a parallel to the last days. 3.5-year period. You look in Acts chapter 8, verse 1, and it says, at that time there was a great persecution that arose, following the stoning of Stephen, exactly 3.5 years after Christ, in 34 AD. Great persecution. Stephen is stoned. The disciples are scattered everywhere throughout Judea and Samaria, preaching the word. And then you look in Revelation 11, verse 3, and I'll give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days. 1,260 days, 42 months, a times, and the dividing of a time, 3.5 years, it's all the same time period. It all adds up the same. So they're prophesying during a persecution during 3.5 years. And you also find in Daniel 12, another 1260 time period is mentioned. So many wonder if this persecution, the small time of trouble, will be about 3.5 years. All right, at the end of the time when God's people are making their final push for the gospel and people are making eternal decisions, something happens that's called the close of probation. That means finally the Holy Spirit is withdrawn from the lost. The whole lost world has committed the unpardonable sin. You can read in Revelation 22:11, where Jesus declares, he who is unjust, let him be unjust still. He who is filthy, let him be filthy still. He who is righteous, let him be righteous still. Can't change. He who is holy, let him be holy still. The saved are permanently saved. The lost are permanently lost. There's no changing teams anymore. Probation is closed. The saved are saved. The lost are lost. But life goes on for a little longer during the final part of the last Great Tribulation, the 7 last plagues. An example of this would be in the story of Noah. You have where Noah and his family, they preach for 120 years while they build the ark. Finally, all the animals get on board. Noah gets on board. He makes his final appeal. Nobody listens. The door is shut. But life goes on for 7 more days after the door is shut. Their probation is closed. So there'll come a time when the door is shut. When Michael stands up and he ceases intercession for the people of God, their probation is closed. That's when things get really hairy scary as far as the final plagues. And you can read about the final Great Tribulation, and let's talk about this. And we'll talk about it when it happens in connection with the rapture. Rapture means the righteous are caught up to meet the Lord in the air. Now, first, what is the Great Tribulation? It's the 7 last plagues. And you can read about that in Revelation chapter 16, verse 1. I heard a loud voice from heaven, from the temple, saying to the 7 angels, go pour out the bowls of the wrath of God on the earth. And that's when they pour out these 7 vials. Many of these 7 plagues are similar to the plagues that fell on ancient Israel, or the Egyptians, when Israel was being saved during the Exodus. In the days of Israel, there were 10 plagues. The Bible says there were boils and there was blood, just like the plagues that you find. There was darkness, similar to the ones in Revelation. But Revelation has 7. Why are there 7 in Revelation and 10 in Exodus? Because the children of Israel experienced the first 3 of the 10 plagues that fell on Egypt. God protected them through the 7 last plagues. God's people will be in the world during the 7 last plagues. Now, I know there are people that say, oh, no, we're going to be raptured out before the 7 last plagues. Well, I'll get to that in a moment. First, what are the plagues? Let's talk about them. You've got the loathsome, painful boils, the sea, the oceans turn to blood, then the freshwater sources, the rivers and springs. Most of the world's population lives on the coastal regions or by a river, turns to blood. Men are scorched, number 4, with great heat. Some would say that's global warming on steroids. There's darkness and pain. There was darkness on the seat of the beast, and there's darkness in Egypt. The Euphrates River is dried up. Now that's got both a literal and a spiritual side to it. It is interesting that the Euphrates River right now is drying up. They're damming it consistently up in Turkey, and the water levels keep going down. I see news reports on that, but there's a spiritual side of that, so that has not happened yet. There's a great earthquake, the earth is shaken, unlike any other, and there's a killer hail, and that is synonymous with the second coming of Jesus. That's the last earthquake, and then they see Christ come. So you've got the 7 plagues. Now, how long is the great time of trouble? You've probably heard people talk about the 7 years of tribulation. You might be interested to know the phrase 7 years of tribulation does not appear anywhere in the Bible. Well, you've heard so many pastors talk about the 7 years of tribulation. Why is that? Well, it's pretty much based upon Daniel chapter 9. In Daniel 9, there's this prophecy. It's called the 490-year prophecy, where it says this last week is cut off. In the midst of this last week, it says the Messiah is cut off. And this is talking about from the restoring and building of Jerusalem unto the Messiah's anointing in 27 AD. 3.5 years later, Jesus is cut off and the veil in the temple is ripped. 3.5 years after that, the Jewish nation plugs their ears and the gospel then goes to the Gentiles. But some people take the last week in Daniel's prophecy and they say, I actually heard one pastor say, well, it's kind of like you stop the clock in a football game and then you start it again. And they take that last 7 years and they move it down to the end of time and they say that's the final tribulation. There's no other prophecy in the Bible that does that. God does not use football rules in interpretation of prophecy. And so, no, there's no stopping the clock. That is one continuous prophecy in Daniel chapter 9, starts in 457 BC, ends in 34 AD, and it's talking about the time allotted for the Jewish nation to proclaim the Messiah to the world. The idea of the final plague, how long will it last? You can read about it in Revelation. Revelation 18:8, therefore her plagues will come in one day. And that word in one day means within a day's time. So all of these 7 plagues, think about how long is the world going to last if the ocean is blood and all the fresh water is blood? People are being scorched with great heat. I mean, look at the fires in the world today. It's like the whole world's on fire. No one's going to be able to grow anything if everything is blood. And it's telling us everyone's being racked with pain from great sores and darkness on the seat of the beast and this great earthquake. And the idea that life goes on 7 years, how long will the 7 plagues take? It all happens within a year's time. Probably something like the length of time of the plagues that fell on Egypt. How long did they take? It's a matter of months. They came back to back. It's like a blitzkrieg, one after the other. And the plagues that fell on Job, terrible plagues, you can read about that, happened in quick succession. The final plagues, why would God drag it out 7 years? Probation's closed. The final plagues are going to happen in a short period of time. Here's the most important point that we want you to get. There are two views in the Christian church about, everyone agrees there's a great tribulation. There are two principal views. Granted, there is a third view. Some believe that the second coming takes place before the great tribulation. Some believe the rapture and the second coming takes place, it's called in the middle of the tribulation. Not too many people believe that, but some do. And then the other major view is that the second coming happens at the end of the great tribulation. I'm in that group. I believe the Bible supports that, because the Bible does not tell us God is saving us from this tribulation, but he saves us through tribulation. If you look in Revelation 3 verse 10, many people look at this verse. It's the message to the church of Philadelphia. Because you have kept my command to persevere, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is to come upon the whole world. They take that to mean the tribulation, to test those who dwell on the earth. They see God's going to keep us from it. He loves us too much to let us go through tribulation. That's doing violence to the truth of the Bible. Yes, God loves us, but because he loves us, he allows us to go through tribulation. The Bible tells us that some of those who are saved from tribulation are delivered by death. When he's speaking to the church of Philadelphia and he says, I'll keep you from the hour of trial, how does he do that? Look at Isaiah 57:1. The righteous perishes and no man takes it to heart. Merciful men are taken away while no one considers. The righteous is taken away from evil. There will be people that God loves that die before the tribulation, but that doesn't mean that he saves us from the tribulation. Look in 2 Chronicles 34:28. God tells King Josiah there's a terrible trial coming to Jerusalem. He says, surely I will gather you to your fathers, and you will be gathered to the grave in peace, and your eyes shall not see all the calamity, the tribulation that I'll bring on this place and its inhabitants. And so it's telling us that in Revelation 3, he's simply saying that the age of the church in Philadelphia, they would all be laid to their rest and would not witness the great tribulation that comes at the end of Laodicea. So these 7 churches are 7 ages of the church. Notice what it says here in Acts 14. I want to emphasize and underscore and highlight this verse. Strengthening the souls of the disciples, exhorting them to continue in the faith, saying, we must through many tribulations enter the kingdom of God. Does God promise to always save us from tribulation? Or does he save us through tribulation? Did God save Noah from the flood or through the flood? Did God save Job from his trials or through his trials? Is Joseph saved from his tribulation, or does God save Joseph through his tribulation? It is through tribulation. Now, the great tribulation is the 7 last plagues. It's very clear. The Bible calls it that. Did God save Israel from the plagues that fell on Egypt, or did he protect them through the plagues? The Exodus has them going through the sea. They go through the fire, so to speak. He saves them through the plagues. He protects them. He's with them. Do not be afraid of the plagues. God saves us through tribulation. Jesus tells us in Matthew 24, talking about the great tribulation, many false prophets will rise. Ultimately, Satan will impersonate Christ and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he that endures to the end, the same shall be saved. Why do you have to endure if you're raptured out before the tribulation? If you're going to make a mistake and you say, which belief is the most dangerous? To believe that we're raptured before the tribulation, or to believe that we must go through the tribulation? It's much safer to brace yourself. If I get to heaven and I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But I believe the Bible supports this. But those of you who think, I don't have to worry, I don't have to fortify my faith, I'm just going to get raptured up and I have nothing to worry about. The Bible tells us, Peter warns, there's some people. He says, beloved, 1 Peter 4:12, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened. There's going to be a whole lot of Christians out there that are going to say something strange is happening. I didn't think we'd be here for the tribulation. They're going to be shocked by the truth. The church will be here through the tribulation. He is coming for a church that has no spot or wrinkle, and you get out the spots and the wrinkles with heat. And so God is going to protect his church. We don't have to be afraid during that time. So how do we prepare for the great tribulation? Well, you can read in Psalm 91 verse 7, 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes will you look and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation, your dwelling place, no evil shall come upon you, nor shall any plague come to your dwelling. God promises that if we make the Lord our habitation, that means if we are in Christ, if we are living in Christ, if we've asked Jesus to forgive our sins, we've surrendered our lives to Him, He will send His angels to guard us and protect us. He becomes our habitation. In the same way that the Israelites put the blood of the Lamb over their homes before that final angel of death came through the land of Egypt, they were protected by the blood of the Lamb. If you have accepted Jesus and His blood for your sins, He will preserve you through those plagues. You don't have to be afraid. Jesus said, John 16, verse 33, "These things I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." You're going to have tribulation in the world. Don't let preachers fool you into thinking that we're all going to disappear off into heaven before the tribulation. It's a very attractive belief, but it's not biblical. You want to have faith that will get you through, that will endure. He that endures, the same will be saved. Well, friends, I hope this makes sense. If you have questions about it, we love to hear from you. You can put your comments in there. And we hope that you'll like this video and share it with your friends. We want to get the truth out there. God bless.